On today's Winning Cures Everything, we're going over the Mountain West Conference. That's right, no more divisions in this conference. We're going to see win totals. We're going to talk about who is actually going to win the conference, along with a lot of other things.
Can you believe it? It's football. I've been watching it for 40 years.
Are you kidding me?
You're listening to Winning Cures Everything.
Game day, baby. Wake up or get out.
Here's your host,
A confident young man, a superb athlete.
Gary Seegers.
Welcome in, Winning Cures Everything. It is July 11th. It's a Tuesday. I'm about to head out of town, so I had to get one more conference preview in. We are going to get to all of them. I promise. Anyway, let's go ahead and do this, get this out of the way. I'm Gary Seegers. Follow me on Twitter, @GaryWCE. Of course, you can follow the website, @WinningCures on Twitter. We are working on a new website as we speak. We have new things in store, etc. Going to make it a little bit cleaner, etc. Let me go ahead and tell you, I will be at BetBash. Of course, Spanky and his bunch out at Circa in Las Vegas, August 8th through the 11th. If you're going to be out there, hit me up. Let me know. I would love to meet everybody. That's my plan. I'm going out there. I just want to shake hands, say hi to everybody, anybody that I can, and then we'll go from there. So, yeah, I'm very excited about the situation. All right, we can't spend too long. The show is brought to you by BetUS. It is America's premier online sportsbook. America's favorite sportsbook for the last 30 years. They've been fantastic to me. They will be fantastic to you. If you look in the link in the description, you will be able to find, if you look in the description, you'll be able to find a link. And you can click on that, and you can get signed up. And they are going to give you $50 to play with, no deposit required. I suggest using it on win totals. Just a guess. Just an idea. But yeah, we're going to talk about win totals today. Let's go ahead and dive into it. The Mountain West Conference. And let's go ahead and start this thing off. We are going to start, of course, with the Air Force Falcons. We'll bring it up on the screen here so you can see exactly what we're looking at. Look, Troy Calhoun went 10-3 last year. They've been doing a fantastic job there. Post-game win expectancy was actually 9.95 and 2.05. So pretty good. Really should have won one more game in the regular season last year. They had some interesting games where they lost close ones. We'll say that. Hazik Daniels is gone. Brad Roberts is gone. Cormier and Terry are gone, the wide receivers. It's going to be a lot of changes on the offense. Let's say that. Number 127 in returning production on offense. Defense, though, which is what their bread and butter is, number 23 in returning production on that side of the ball. 73.5% coming back on that. Now, if you look at, let's start with the offense here. You see a lot of green on the screen. You see they were number 12 in offensive PPA per drive, number 13 in rushing success. Obviously, this team does not throw the football a lot, but they were number 52 in passing success rate. Not very explosive, but that makes sense because they will paper cut you to death, right? Triple option offense. They ran the ball nearly 87% of the time last year. Don't think that's going to change with Jensen Jones, who we think is going to be the quarterback this year. He carried on over 29% of his snaps. He handed off on almost 69% of them. The offensive line does return 4 starters, so that is certainly going to help transition into the new guys at the skill positions. They return nearly 80% of offensive line snaps. Now, they did lose nearly 75% of their rushing attempts, and they lost 5 of their top 6 rushers. I don't think it's going to matter. Yeah, you see it in the NFL. You can replace a running back with undrafted guys, etc. I think that this team is still going to be really, really good. They also lost their top 2 wide receivers and 65% of their targets. But again, this is a team that does not throw the ball very much. You look at the fact that they handed off, or they ran the ball 87% of the time last year. That means only 13% of their plays on offense were passes. And I think they can probably find a way to recoup that. All right, what about the defense? Obviously, defense has been really, really good for years. They lost over 40% of their quarterback pressures, but they do return 71% of their overall tackles. Defensive tackle Peyton Zdroik, I hope I said that right, and the defensive line should be a strength here. Of course, the linebacker, they lose a couple of key players, but that's still a really, really strong unit. The defense only had to defend an average of 8 drives per game. That was number 2 in the FBS last year. Secondary is experienced, but, they were number 86 in passing success rate, number 4 in third down conversion percentage. I think you're going to see a lot of the same. As far as key players go, by the way, luck rank. You look at this team, number 49 in turnover margin, number 4 in penalties per game. Number 4 is pretty good in penalties per game. Mike could clean up the turnover margin just a little bit, maybe generate some more. As far as luck rank goes, they were number 78. And luck rank includes a ton of different stuff. Did your opponent make a field goal when, they probably shouldn't have, or did the ball bounce the wrong way? All that kind of stuff, right? Luck rank from teamrankings.com had them at number 78. Now, this year, they are projected favorites in 11 games. But we'll get to that. Key players, Jensen Jones, of course, the quarterback. I think the running back, John Lee Eldridge, he'll be one of many, but I think he'll be, one of the primary backs. The center there, the 2 safeties, Taylor and Goff. The linebacker, Mock, is going to be really good. Look, keys to the season. Air Force loses key players, but the foundation and the lines are still really strong here. The schedule, incredibly convenient. I mean, look, you're starting with Robert Morris, and then you got Sam Houston in their first year in the FBS. You got Utah State at home in week 3. Like, that's how you start your season. So you get a chance to get the ball rolling early. Definitely awesome with what they did in non-conference, right? I mean, you've always got Navy, you've always got Army, but Robert Morris and Sam Houston, yes, please. This program is incredibly consistent. Troy Calhoun, he has an identity in this program. The returning, experience, it doesn't seem to matter with this team. They just always have somebody lined up ready to go. They need the defense to get more takeaways. As I mentioned earlier, they were number 100 per game. And so in per game takeaways. What I'm curious about is we've talked about Army and Navy and how the new blocking rules are going to affect them. How much does that affect Air Force? Didn't seem to affect them a whole lot last year, but like this year is the big change. I'm very curious what this offense really looks like. Are they going to continue to be the same thing? As far as their strength of schedule, average about between all the different media companies, number 131. That is second to last. I like this team. I've got them going 9-3 over the 8.5. That's plus 120 over at BetUS. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of this bunch. So Air Force, I've got them going over 8.5 wins on that. I think I got 3 losses in conference, but I think they're going to be fantastic again this season. All right, moving right along. We got to keep the train rolling here. Boise State with Andy Avalos found a way to turn it over last year after a ridiculously embarrassing loss to UTEP. So what's in store for this year? Let's pop it on the screen here. Let's see what we got. They went 10-4 last year. They were 6-7-1 against the spread, so they didn't cover at a high rate, but they found a way to win games. They went 8-0 in the conference last year. They were abysmal in the non-con, and it's going to be tough again this year with the non-conference schedule, right? At Washington, UCF, they got Memphis this year. They do have North Dakota at home. Their projected record this year is 7.8825 and 4.1175. Well, now, that's just absurd. Number 46 in returning production, number 16 on offense, number 94 on defense, and the defense is what really saved them last year. Honestly, you look at some of these numbers here. Number 15 PPA margin, but they were number 55 PPA per drive on offense. So the defense is what really, really helped them out. And now you're losing a bunch of guys. We'll start off with the offense here. Obviously, you're losing the offensive coordinator, Dirk Cutter. He was able to step in that role after week 4, I think it was last year, maybe week 5, and really, really turn this thing around with the quarterback, Taylon Green. How much of a change is it from Cutter to Bush Hamdan? That's the question. Like, that's going to be the biggest thing for Andy Avalos. You have a feeling, of course, with Avalos as your head coach, that this team's going to be pretty good on defense, no matter what. However, Bush Hamdan, he was the offensive coordinator at Washington under Chris Peterson in 2018 and 2019. They were number 55, and then he regressed to number 79 in yards per play. Pretty much everybody's back on the offense other than, some of the offensive line, but still lots of experience there. Guys that have been in the system. The quarterback, Green, the running back, Kalani, Jonte, combined for 27 rushing touchdowns. They're going to run the ball a lot. They were number 44 in rushing success last year. Got to find a way to be successful throwing the football this year. Just got to find a way to do that. Moving over to the defense. They're losing 4 of the top 5 in the secondary. It's going to be a rebuild. This team was number 1 in the country in passing success rate allowed. Now, some of that may have had to do with who they played last year. Obviously, when you've got Wyoming and Air Force and whatnot on the schedule, that's you kind of expect it, right? Those teams do not throw the ball a lot. The defensive numbers were great. But again, as I just said, how much of that was the opposing offenses? The depth issues with the secondary and the defensive line, those are going to be real. It's going to take some time to build into those, and you don't want to see, Washington and UCF as your first 2 games when you're trying to break in a new defense, especially defensive line and secondary. So it's something to pay attention to right there, right off the bat with the schedule. I don't expect early season success, but I think this team will round into form as they move along. They lost 44% of their tackles and nearly 60% of quarterback pressures, along with 4 of their top 5 tackles for loss leader and 4 of the top 6 sack getters. So, number 71 in luck rank last year. They were number 52 in turnover margin. Let's take a look before we get to the keys of the season. Their win total is set at 8.5 at BetUS. The over is -125. The under -105. I don't feel great, especially when your non-con includes at Memphis, UCF, and at Washington. I don't feel great about that for the early part of the season. And look, it's a firestorm right out of the gate. At Washington, UCF, North Dakota, we can probably take that one out. That's probably a win. At San Diego State and then at Memphis, the scheduling gods did them no favors. We'll just say that. The team is incredibly consistent, regardless of who the coach is, any kind of changeovers, etc. But again, losing so much on defense, that's going to stress Avalos' abilities early. I don't like the schedule early for this bunch. They've got an incredibly tough non-con, as I mentioned. The conference slate does include San Diego State and Fresno this year. Eliminating divisions, that's going to happen. I've got them beating Air Force at the end of the year. I've got them to go 8-4, so I've got them going under at -105. Ceiling on this team, I've got 10-2. The floor, I've got 6-6. So, I think they could be all right, but 8-4 sounds about right to me. But you guys let me know in the comments. I like Boise State. I like Andy Avalos, but this does not appear to be the kind of year where you would want to do a rebuild. I'll just say that. Moving along to Colorado State. And Jay Norvell heading into his second season here. The first year was not good. 3-9. And I don't know how much better the second year is going to be. Right? Their post-game win expectancy last year was 4.02 and 7.98. The defense was actually pretty good, especially compared to the offense. It was just abysmal. Number 126 in offensive PPA per drive. This was tearing everything down to the studs on offense and having to completely rebuild it. We know that Jay Norvell is a good coach, but the type of offense that he runs, it takes a while to get there. I can understand it. So their projected record this year, 4.83, we'll say that, and 7.17. Their win total is 4.5 this year. Over is juiced at -120, under -110. That's over at BetUS. These offensive numbers, the turnover margin, the penalties per game, all of it was just brutal last season. So let's start with the offense here. The offensive line has got to improve. They've got to improve. That's the only way to say it. They're losing 4 of the top 9. They're giving, they averaged giving up almost 5 sacks and 9 tackles for loss last year, per game. That is insane numbers. However, like what's odd to me is the fact that they were not very good, and their quarterback, Clay Millen, still completed 72% of his passes. Like, how do you complete 72% of your passes and you're not very good? It's just wild. They were number 127 in PPA per drive, or excuse me, 126 in PPA per drive. In 2022, number 129 in points per game. They averaged only 13.2 points per game. They got 3 new offensive line transfers, a new running back, new wide receivers, new tight end. They're number 36 in returning production on offense. They should know the scheme better, but I still don't know how much talent they're going to have, right? That's what I'm a little concerned about this, because this schedule is not exactly forgiving, especially their non-conference. The non-conference is not easy at all. So I'm interested. I'm interested. You got Washington State to start with, and then you got an off week, and then you got to go for 11 straight weeks. You play at Colorado, at Middle Tennessee, then you got Utah Tech, then you play at Utah State, Boise State, at UNLV. There's no layups. There's nothing easy for this team. And having your bye week in week 2 is just, The defense here. Freddie Banks, of course, running that defense. Defensive end Muhammad Kamara is back. He had 16 tackles for loss and 8.5 sacks last year. They are returning over 61% of their tackles, but they did lose 3 of the top 4 tacklers. So that should tell you something. Secondary looks pretty good. They got defensive back Jack Howell back. He had 108 tackles last year. He was the leading tackler. They returned 62% of their quarterback pressures, but they need to step it up. They need to get more of those. You look at the key players, Jack Howell, as I just mentioned, Kamara, the defensive lineman, the quarterback, Clay Millen, again, 72% completion percentage, and they went 3-9. Like, you got to be more explosive. You got to be, and they were explosive, but oh my gosh, how about you just need to be more consistent? It's just ridiculous. Let's look at keys to the season. Again, the win total is 4.5 here. They got to stop beating themselves. Like, they were 6-2 against the spread in the last 8 games last year, but they were not good. Like, that's what, like, they beat themselves way too much. Number 101 in turnover margin, number 112 in penalties per game. Just brutal. Look, they took a lot of chances. They were number 14 in fourth down attempts per game, but they couldn't convert them. Number 104 in fourth down conversion percentage at 40%. The defense, again, they were good. Number 63 PPA per drive, or 61, whatever. They need a lot of help from the offense. They're going to need a lot more than they got last year. I still can't get over this. 72% completion percentage and only 13 points per game. That's just absurd. And so I've got wins over Utah Tech, over Air Force. Surprising, I know, but Air Force always drops something along these lines. I think the offense will be kicking at that point. I've got a win over Nevada and a win at Hawaii to end the season. But that's it. I've got them 4-8. I think this is still a rebuilding job. I think it's going to take a little bit of time. The ceiling here is 6-6 for them, I think. I think they could potentially make a bowl game. They could sneak up and beat Colorado in week 3. They could find a way to, beat San Diego State. They could find a way to beat Utah State. Like, there's wins on this schedule if they can go out and get them. But still not a very good team. So I've got them going under -110. That's over at BetUS, 4.5. I think the floor is probably 2-10. Stealing bowl game at 6-6. But I think Jay Norvell still has some work to do heading into this season. I think it's going to take a little bit of time. Next up, the Fresno State Bulldogs. Jeff Tedford, of course, in year 2 of this stint. And last year was a good year. So long as Jake Haener was playing, they were pretty good. Won the Mountain West again. Not too shabby. But what about this year? Let's take a look at this. 10-4 last year. They went 7-7 against the spread. Their postgame win expectancy last year was nothing near 10-4. They were 7.4 and 5.6 in the regular season in their postgame win expectancy. They went 7-1 in the conference. Their projected record this year, 7.92 and 4.08. So, But 8-4. It's a projected record, at least according to the numbers. Pat McCann is the new offensive coordinator. Kirby Moore is now headed over to Missouri as their offensive coordinator for old Eli Drinkwitz. Jay Kaner. Let's talk about him. Fantastic. He and Jordan Mims last year. They're losing 4 of their top 5 wide receivers. Kirby Moore is gone. This offense is going to look completely different, except Jeff Tedford knows what he's doing on that side of the ball. He always has. The quarterback, Logan Fife, he was expected to be the starter. We're going to start on offense here. He was expected to be the starter this year. The team went 2-3 in games in which he played. He threw 2 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So, of course, they brought in quarterback Mikey Keene from UCF. He's the transfer. I think everybody kind of expects him to take the starting role here. They brought in 4 JUCO wide receivers because they lost 6 of the top 7 pass catchers. The offensive line returned 72% of the snaps. I think that's going to help with continuity here. The running backs, Malik Sherrod and Damian Moore, who, of course, came over from Cal, they should be pretty good as far as the running back core is concerned. As far as the defense was pretty good last year. Number 53 PPA per drive. They returned 62% of their tackles from last year and their snaps. 56% of quarterback pressures are back, but they did see 9 players transfer and 4 graduate. So it's crazy that they're number 68 in returning production when you lost, a lot of dudes, right? That's 13 guys that are out. Definitely some key guys to replace on defense, but, it looks like 9 of 11 starters are going to be seniors. So you've got a lot of experience, especially guys that have been in the program. That helps. Guys that have gotten snaps, whether it's here or elsewhere, that's going to help you out a bunch. Key players, I think Keene is the key guy. The running backs, Sherrod and Moore. The cornerback, Cam Lockridge. Very important piece here. Linebacker, Lavelle Bailey. And then, of course, you get the transfer wide receiver, Jalen Gill, coming in. He should help out tremendously as well. Keys to the season. This season. The win total sits at 8 over at BetUS. Number is -130 to go over, even 100. Even money to go under. I wish this thing was 8.5 or 7.5 or something, because I got to tell you, I think it's going to hit right at 8. I got losses to Purdue. I got a loss to Wyoming, a loss to San Jose State, a loss to San Diego State. The offense, probably not going to be as good without Haener, but, Mikey Keene is intriguing, especially with Tedford still there. The schedule has winnable non-conference games. I could see them winning at Purdue in game 1 if Mikey Keene just goes off. I really think they could win at Arizona State in week 3. So, win one of those, and I think you're doing pretty good. The last 4 of the season, that's where you're going to figure out whether or not you're going to be able to win the conference. You play Boise State, at San Jose State, New Mexico, and at San Diego State. You could probably even throw week 9 in there, UNLV. I'm pretty high on them this year. But regardless, the question here is, can they continue this success even with so much coaching turnover year after year? Right? Tedford's there. He's been there, etc. But, man, you were losing offensive coordinator. You're losing staffers. You're losing just a ton of guys. And now you've got transfer churn as well. I think they go 8-4. I think they're still going to be pretty good. No divisions again. It's going to make it a little more difficult. I think the ceiling for this team, probably 10-2. The floor is they could not even make a bowl game. And we've seen this before, even under Tedford. Like, they have had some bad years, but they always tend to bounce back. Well, they had a good year last year. But number 106 in returning production, number 113 on offense, that's not promising. So, yeah. I like this team. I like what they've got. I like the pieces that they've got. But 8-4 looks about right to me, so it's right on the number. If you can get a 7.5, I would go over. If you got an 8.5, I would go under. Seems pretty easy, right? Make it simple enough. All right. Write down the time. The Hawaii Warriors. Timmy Chang's second year here. Last year, finished the season looking at least competent, right? That's good. They went 3-10, but man, their against the spread numbers were pretty good. This team at least looked like they could compete in the Mountain West. But what does last year mean for this year? Let's go on and bring it up on the screen. Let's show you what we're looking at. The running back, Dedrick Parson, he is gone. The wide receiver, Zion Bowens, is gone. Tight end, Caleb Phillips. You got 3 starting offensive linemen gone. On defense, you got the defensive back, Houseman. You got the defensive lineman, Tayata. You got the linebacker, Pavidi. You got dudes that, Pavihi. You're losing a lot. You're losing a lot. We'll just say that. Number 81, returning production on offense. Number 63, returning production on defense. You're losing key guys. It's very important. Number 120 in turnover margin last year. That was not good. Their projected record this year is basically around 4.5 wins. 4.5 wins, 7.5 losses. I guess it'd be 7.5. So this is not ideal. Let's talk about the offense. They were number 22 in rushing success rate, but they were number 109 in rush rate. They only ran on 42.86% of plays. Why did they do that? Is it just the offensive scheme where they're going to throw the ball no matter what? It drives me nuts when offenses won't do the thing that they're good at, right? They couldn't finish drives last year. They were number 120 in points per scoring opportunity. That's drives where you get a first down inside of the opponent's 40-yard line. They lost 4 of their top 6 offensive linemen from a pretty good offensive line unit. They were number 14 in offensive line yards. They were number 11 in havoc allowed. This was a good offensive line unit that kept them competitive. And I don't know that they've got that this year. Now, let's move over to the defense. You got 3 defensive line transfers. You got 2 defensive back transfers. You got 1 linebacker transfer. They're all expected to help immediately on that defense. The defense was not good either, right? Just overall numbers, offense was number 118 PPA per drive. Defense was number 116 PPA per drive. Not ideal. Not ideal. They gave up over 5.5 yards per play to every FBS team that they played except for Nevada. They were number 114 in points allowed per scoring opportunity. They were number 123 in points allowed per game. Now, they do return 4 of their top 5 tacklers, but 3 of those are defensive backs. When your secondary are your leading tacklers, it's not ideal. We'll say that. They are returning 70% of their quarterback pressures. Look, penalties per game, they were pretty good, number 44, so they didn't beat themselves a lot with that. But again, turnover margin number 120, and their luck rank was still number 64. So this team looked a little bit better than what they actually were, which is mind-blowing. Key players, Braden Schrager's back, Shager, excuse me. The wide receiver, Walthall, running back, Hines, they're all there. They've got, really good center, Verdell Edwards, the second defensive back. He's a key player coming back. They got some defensive linemen I think could be very interesting. Keys to the season here. The win total is 3.5 on this. To go under is minus 140. To go over is plus 100. There are some people that are very bullish on Hawaii. I like Timmy Chang. I hope that he does really well. I'm very, very hopeful. However, I don't feel great about this. They got to fix the turnovers. They were number 128 in takeaways per game, so they weren't exactly aggressive in getting turnovers. They were number 72 in giveaways, which is okay. I mean, it's middle of the pack, but again, can you afford to be middle of the pack when you're just not a very good team overall? They were minus 4 in a 7-point loss to Utah State last year. They were minus 1 in a 17-13 loss to Colorado State. They could have won those 2 games if they didn't turn the ball over or generated more turnovers themselves. It's likely to be another rebuilding year. Losing offensive linemen hurts, especially guys that have had a lot of experience. The question here is, can the running back Hines get loose and create explosives behind a rebuilt offensive line? That's the question. They need the defensive newcomers to show up in a huge way. The team did trend well. They went 7-1 against the spread down the stretch, but I think that the numbers had just gotten so outblown when Vanderbilt ran them off the field in week 0 last year. This year they got to start at Vanderbilt, and then, of course, they have a short week where they got to fly from Nashville back home, and they got to play against Stanford. Then you got Albany, whatever you want to call it. And then you play at Oregon that next week, New Mexico State, which I think is going to be pretty good, at UNLV, which I think is going to be pretty good. You got San Diego State, at New Mexico, San Jose. I mean, it's a brutal, brutal schedule. I have Hawaii going 1-12. Now, I think the ceiling is probably about 5-7. There's some of these that you could absolutely flip around. Could they beat Colorado State? Yeah. Could they maybe beat Wyoming? Probably not in November. Could they beat Nevada? Yeah. But the fact that game's on the road kind of sucks. Could they beat New Mexico? Yes. I mean, at New Mexico is difficult. And so, I don't know. They could probably beat UNLV. They could probably beat New Mexico State. But I don't like the chances here, especially with that rebuilt offensive line. So, I think the floor is 1-12, and I think they are going to hit the floor this year. I still don't believe that they are going to fire Timmy Chang anytime soon. They're going to give him time to get this thing corrected. But it is rough. It is really, really rough. So 1-12 for me. I'm going under that 3.5 win total. I know it's minus 140. I think this is money well spent. I will say that. Next up, the Nevada Wolfpack. My goodness gracious. Ken Wilson, 2-10 last year, won his first 2 ball games. Didn't win a single one after that. But if you look at the numbers, this team really wasn't that bad, right? Let's pull it up on the screen. The defense was actually better than I thought they were. They didn't turn the ball over like crazy. They forced some turnovers. They were number 51 in penalties per game. Somewhat explosive on offense. Yeah. Now, what really sucks is they're going to have to replace some guys on offense, right? Number 101 in returning production on offense. Yeah, not great. They lose Nate Cox. They lose Tawa. I never say these right. I used to be better at pronouncing some of these. The wide receiver, B.J. Castile. However, on defense, they're number 48 in returning production on that side. Let's talk about the offense first. Brought in 5 Pac-12 transfers that should immediately upgrade the talent on that side of the ball. But they did lose 40% of their offensive line snaps. As bad as the offensive line was, or at least looked in certain points, they were numbers 36 in stuff rate allowed. So that unit was pretty good. We'll see what they can do this year. They were number 35 in explosive play rate. That's number 34 passing, number 24 rushing. I am shocked that they did not add any offensive linemen through the portal. But they did bring in some JUCOs. They got 2 3-stars and another guy that's coming in. So maybe they believe in those guys. But you would expect to see maybe some guys with some experience, right? Just a guess. As far as what to know about the defense here, that's expected to be the team's strength. Of course, Ken Wilson is a defensive guy. The front 6 is considered one of the best in the Mountain West. They were number 46 in havoc rate last year. But they got to get stops. You got to get stops. They were number 109 in 4th down conversion percentage. They allowed 64.71%. They were number 49 in red zone conversions allowed at 81.4%. So they got to be able to get stops. The number 49 in red zone conversion percentage is okay. That's pretty good. The fact that they couldn't stop anybody on 4th down, that's not great at all. The key players this year, Shane Illingworth or the quarterback Brennan Lewis, who just transferred in from Colorado. You got linebacker Drew Watts. You got the Oregon transfer running back Sean Dollar, who I think could be a massive playmaker. The cornerbacks, Dedmon and, let's see, Esisimima. That's not right. Esisima. I don't do a very good job with this. You Nevada fans, don't harass me. I'm trying my best. The wide receiver from USC, John Jackson III. I think he could end up being pretty good. Let's go to the keys of the season, okay? They need to win at Texas State in week 4 if they want to have a shot at a bowl game. Like, that's what you need to do to set the tone going into the conference play. I think the most important stretch is at the end of the season, obviously. Weeks 9 through 12. I don't expect them to beat Nevada at the end of, Wyoming at the end of the season. But weeks 9 through 12, you got New Mexico, Hawaii, at Utah State, at Colorado State. If you could win all 4 of those, you might be able to go bowling. You go 2-2 like I've projected here, probably not going to be great. The projected record this season, by the way, a lot of the analytics very high on Nevada. Now, I'm not super high on it, and I'm going back and forth between Nevada and Nevada. For me, it's Nevada. I know a lot of you get on to me about this, but regardless, I'll try Nevada. It's going to be tough to make a bowl game. I know that the numbers, like the projected record says 5.24 wins. The win total is at 3 for a reason. Now, to go over is minus 150. Under is plus 120. I think they fall right on the 3. I got a win over New Mexico, win over Hawaii, and a win over Idaho. Other than that, I mean, some of these winnable games are on the road late in the year. I don't feel great about it. They did a decent job with turnovers and penalties last year. Again, 55 in turnover margin, 51 in penalties per game. Can they continue to improve that along with improving the offense? Can they do that? Wilson did an okay job last year. Of course, you look at the numbers. Defense was all right. But you can't look at wins and losses when you do that. The offense was just non-existent last year. Number 124 in PPA per drive on offense. Brutal. I got them at 3-9. I think the ceiling could be 6-6, right? This could be a better team than I'm envisioning. But I think the floor is super low. Super low. 1-11, I think, is the floor for this team. I don't think they go winless. I think they play too hard for that. Maybe make a bowl game. I've got them at 3-9. 3-9. All right, on the other side, we're going to hit on San Diego State, New Mexico, and the rest of the Mountain West. Let's check out some things you should know about.
Every Tuesday and Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, expert game analysis only on the BetUS TV College Football Channel.
If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or whatever's your favorite podcast app. And if your app allows it, leave a 5-star written review.
Visit the Winning Cures Everything web store to get all kinds of football shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and more. Visit winningcureseverything.com/store to see what all we've added.
And now, back to the show. All right, the New Mexico Lobos. Let's go ahead and bring them up on the screen. This team last year was, and that's not transitioning. Great. Let's check out some things you should know about. That was not what we wanted to do. There we go. We got it to move. All right, Danny Gonzalez. Good gracious. 4th season at the helm. He needs some help. He needs some work. He needs something to go his way. And maybe he did a very smart thing here. I think that he probably did by bringing in former UAB interim head coach and offensive coordinator Brian Vincent. But we'll get to that here in just a second. Of course, 2-10 last year, but their postgame win expectancy was actually 2.5 wins. So, maybe. They were number 131 in offensive PPA per drive last year. Defense, though, was number 52 in PPA per drive. So the defense was actually pretty good last year. The issue is that they are now number 133 in returning production on defense. Not good. Let's start off with the offense here. Always a good thing. Again, Brian Vincent, UAB interim head coach. He is the new offense coordinator, and he brings his quarterback with him, Dylan Hopkins. He's a transfer starter, or I guess the presumed starter. UAB was 7-3 in games that he finished last year. He was injured for a little bit. They lost both the games where he was injured. Is what it is. The offense cannot possibly be worse than they were last year at New Mexico. They've ranked last in SP Plus for the last 2 seasons. They were last in PPA per drive in 2022. Just brutal. Offensive line is losing 48% of their snaps. They moved their starting right tackle to defensive line. Feel like you might have needed him on the offensive line. Now, I don't know this team in and out. Obviously, Gonzalez, he got hired for the job. He knows what he's doing, we think. But seems interesting when you're losing that many snaps from your offensive line. As far as the defense goes, Rocky Long left to be the new Syracuse defensive coordinator. Reffett was the cornerbacks coach, and he's been a defensive coordinator here at New Mexico before. He's been a defensive coordinator several times, from what I understand, at New Mexico and whatever else. North Texas, I think. Was it him or somebody else? I might be getting my dudes mixed up. Either way, Either way, they lost 10 of 15 defenders who played at least 250 snaps last year. The defense, again, was pretty good. They were number 10 in passing downs PPA, number 42 in points per scoring opportunity, but they lost 8 of 11 guys that got a sack last year. They lost their top 6 tackles for loss guys. They lost their top 7 tacklers. Just rough. Dead last in defensive returning production, and no experienced transfers coming in. So do they just trust the guys, or I don't know. The key players this year, I've got 3 down here. Obviously, on defense, it's kind of a crapshoot, but on offense, Dylan Hopkins, of course, the UAB transfer quarterback, the running back, Christian Washington, and then you got Alabama State transfer Jeremiah Hickson coming in at wide receiver. I think he's going to be pretty good. Danny Gonzalez enters his 4th season. He needs, again, something good to happen here. They were 1-6-1 against the spread against Mountain West teams last year. He needs to be competitive. You got to be in these games if you want another year. As far as the defense, I don't know what to make of it. That's one key here. I don't know what to make of the talent, right? You just got a bunch of new faces coming in that nobody seems to know a whole lot about, and you got a new defensive coordinator. Yeah. The schedule, brutal, especially considering their talent level. Most of the people in this conference have got like a 125 to 132 strength of schedule. Not New Mexico. They got number 102. They got Texas A&M on the schedule. They got at Wyoming. They got at Boise State, at Fresno State. That means some of the more winnable games are at home. I've got them winning 3 of their first 4 games. But after that, no, sir. Don't feel good about this. I got a win over Hawaii at home. But, man, that's about it. Their win total is set at 4. Their projected record is actually 4.005, according to the numbers. I think 4 is them. I think they're going to lose their last 5 games, and that might be all she wrote for Danny Gonzalez. I hope that he does well, but man, I don't have a lot of belief. I haven't seen it yet. The floor for this team, I think, is probably 2-10. I think the ceiling, maybe they can find a way to make a bowl game. Maybe Brian Vincent makes a huge adjustment on offense, and they can find a way to outscore some of these teams. But I think that, losing that much on defense, it's going to hurt them big time. So I'm out on New Mexico. I've got them 4-8. I got them right on the number here. This is going to be a rough one. Rough one for the Lobos again. Don't feel great about it, but what are you going to do? San Diego State. They are next up on the docket. And Brady Hoke, decent year last year, but they didn't beat any of the best teams on their schedule, which is interesting, right? Defense was pretty good under Kurt Maddox, but still got a problem with the offense. Let's look at the numbers. 7-6 last year. They were 5-8 against the spread. Look, their post-game win expectancy was 6.77 and 5.23. So, they were about exactly what they should have been. The offense was just not good. Number 91 PPA per drive. Defense, as always, number 16 PPA per drive on defense. Pretty good. Ryan Lindley is the offensive coordinator this year. He was the quarterback's coach last year. He's a former Aztecs quarterback. Look, let's start on the offensive side here. Let's talk about this. One, we'll talk about turnover margin and all that here in a little bit. The quarterback, Jalen Maiden, did show promise in the last 8 weeks, right? He threw for 2,000-plus yards, but he had 12 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. He was number 59 in PPA per pass, but number 80 in passing success. That's not good. This team ran the ball on 54% of their offensive plays. That was number 34 nationally, but they were number 105 in rushing success rate. I mean, it's like hitting your head against a brick wall over and over and over again. Can the offensive line be better this year? That's the big question for this offense, because you're going to need them to be. For the running backs, Christian and Armstead here. Jordan Byrd is not there anymore, and he didn't even have really good numbers last year. So, at wide receiver, you're going to have some new faces too. Terrell Shavers is gone, and Matthews is gone as well. You're losing your center and your right tackle. And you got some dudes that you're missing out on. On defense, Kurt Maddox always does a pretty good job. As I mentioned before, really good against the rush. Weren't great against the pass. Number 61 in passing success rate allowed. The front six is going to look completely different, but they do still have a lot of talent here. They lost 7 of their top 12 leading tacklers, along with 5 of their top 6 TFL and sack guys. Defense was number 17 or 16 PPA per drive, number 31 in success allowed overall, but number 63 PPA per pass. Just rough stuff, right? The secondary needs to be better this year, but also they lost their star safety, Patrick McMorris. He transferred out. So, who knows? They do get some guys in, though. Cody Moon is coming in from New Mexico, and he was awesome last year. Just awesome. So, let's look at some keys to the season. The win total for San Diego State sits at 7. To go over is -110. To go under is -120. So, the books expect them to go under more often than they would go over. They've got an insanely rough 4-game stretch in weeks 2 through 5. And then they close the season with San Jose State and Fresno State. The offense has to step up early. They just have to. They open week 0 against Ohio, but then you look at week 2, you got UCLA at Oregon State, Boise State at Air Force. Then you get a week off, you get to go to Hawaii, you play Nevada, and then you got another week off, and then Utah State at Colorado State, at San Jose State, and Fresno State. I've got a win over Fresno State down at the bottom here. But that could easily that could be a loss. Just saying. They got to stop beating themselves. Right? Number 113 penalties per game, number 116 giveaways per game. They got to clean up the fundamentals. I mean, what are we doing? Just ridiculous numbers. Brady Hoke got worse every year at Michigan. Like, if you go look at the records, he started out fantastic in year 1. And then every year after that was just brutal, like just rough. Yeah. Like, he has now gone from 12-2. We're not going to count the COVID season for these guys, but they went 12-2 in 2021 at San Diego State. And now 7-6 last year. They need a rebound year in the worst way. I don't see it, though. The win total is 7 for a reason. I've got them winning 7 games, and that's with a win over Fresno State, right? I think the floor for this team, probably 5-7. I think the ceiling is probably 9-3. I don't have a lot of faith in the offense, but has anybody had faith in San Diego State's offense in a while? I don't think so. And so, yeah, not going to take a side on this. If I had to take a side, I would go with the under because I just don't buy San Diego State a whole lot right now. But again, like, this is a team that always plays good defense. If you can play good defense, you'll probably be able to win some games in the Mountain West. All right. San Jose State, the Spartans. And if you've watched this program for any length of time, you know how much I appreciate Brent Brennan, right? The dude is fantastic. And last year's team was quite the conundrum. I could not figure this out. I could not figure out this team. Their talent was so much better. Now, obviously, you did have the death of a teammate in the middle of the year. That may have made things a little bit crazy, but let's look at the numbers heading into this season. Last year, 7-5, but their post-game win expectancy was 5.35 and 5.65. Not great. That can't be right. That doesn't add up to well, whatever. I must have typed that in wrong. I think it might have been 6.35 and 5.65. Regardless, they weren't great even with the numbers, right? Returning production this year is number 51. Just under 65%. Number 9 in offensive returning production. Number 108 defensive returning production. The defense was better than the offense last year. So, okay. Let's start on offense. The quarterback, Chevin Cordero, he returns along with 100% of their offensive line snaps. I've never seen that before. They're bringing back everybody on the offensive line. The team was all over the place, like statistically. Number 87 PPA per pass, but number 27 passing success. That doesn't make sense, right? I mean, it's so weird. Another part of this, like they're number 26 rushing success, but number 72 PPA per rush. They threw the ball on 60% of their plays, which was number 10 in the country, but they were number 24 in running the ball. like how many times they ran the ball per play. Will they change up the focus of the offense and try and make it a little more balanced to maybe create some more success? Who knows at this point? They threw it a lot, even though they didn't have. Let me say this: their success rate was great, but as far as the points that they scored, though, that was not great. We'll say that. Just a weird overall season for this bunch. Let's look at the defense here, because that's the part that really got me. Derek Odom, the defensive coordinator, talent on last year's defense was better than what they ended up with, number 46 PPA per drive allowed. That defensive line was talented, number 23 in havoc rate, but they were number 78 in passing downs PPA, number 70 in third down conversion percentage. Like, the predictive metrics, I think, were better than the defense ended up. I mean, they gave up 43 points at San Diego State. They gave up 41, I think, to Eastern Michigan in the bowl game. Like, there were certain games where they just didn't necessarily look like they wanted to be there. It was very strange. I don't know. They were 2-6 against the spread against Mountain West teams, and they were so much more talented than some of those teams. It's just mind-blowing. You couldn't count on them to play up to a standard. It was a different version of the team every week. Looking at the keys to the season here, they're projected favorites in 4 games. Maybe more. I don't know. I'm looking at a look. I've got them going 6-6. I'll go on and tell you. Their win total is 5.5 over at BetUS. To go over is -145. To go under is +115. They were number 4 in turnover margin last year, but number 83 in luck rank. This team was so all over the place. Now, will things go better with new defensive faces? Maybe. They had more talent last year than they will this year, but at least on that side of the ball, who knows? Maybe they just needed some fresh blood in there. They were number 99 in offensive explosivity, number 75 in defensive explosiveness allowed. Got to find a way to stop the big plays and find a way to generate their own. The pass defense has got to improve a little bit. They were number 55 in passing success rate last year, but they gave up some big plays. They just gave up a lot of them, especially to San Diego State in that game. It was wild. I've got them going 6-6. I think the ceiling for this team is 8-4. But I think the floor is like 4-8. If they don't show up in some of these games that I've got them winning, like I got to win over San Diego State. I got to win over Hawaii and New Mexico both on the road. I got to win over Air Force here. Like, this team is the kind that can bounce around and get really good wins or take really bad losses. So I kind of expect them to do the same here. So I like this bunch. But 6-6, make another bowl game. Like, Brent Brennan understands how difficult it is to win at this place, and yet he consistently does it. And they've got some pretty good talent this year. I'm buying stock on them, but not too much. I'm going to take the over 5.5 on that bunch. The UNLV Rebels. Let's dive in with the new head coach, Barry Odom. Marcus Arroyo started out 4-1 last year, into the season 5-7. Quarterback got hurt, didn't matter. Boosters wanted him out. Time to reset. They're thinking maybe they can get in on this conference expansion bit. I don't know that I necessarily agree, but, we shall see. We shall see. Let's look at the numbers. All right, 5-7 last year, returning production number 52 in the country, just under 65%. And, of course, they've got a new offensive coordinator, Brennan Marion. They did have Bobby Petrino as the offensive coordinator, but Marion comes over from Texas. Now that Petrino is at Texas A&M, Marion was the wide receivers coach at Texas. He was known for the go-go offense that he put in at Howard. He was a great wide receivers coach. If you remember Jordan Addison over at Pittsburgh, that's the guy. That's the guy. All right, let's talk about this offense real quick. They're losing Aiden Robbins. That's going to be an issue because he was a dude last year, absolute dude. They lost nearly 67% of their offensive line snaps from a unit that was number 10 in havoc rate allowed last year. That's not good. However, they do have the quarterback back, Doug Brumfeld, and they got wide receiver Ricky White, who was a transfer from Michigan State, back. They were awesome to start the year last year, but after Brumfeld got hurt, it didn't look as great. Now, can they kind of recapture that magic, right? Passing numbers were not good. Especially after Brumfeld went down. But, if you don't have Robbins anymore, can Davis and Reese replace that? Those are the two next guys up here. Who knows? But number 110 in passing success is not going to cut it. I don't think Marion's going to let that happen this year. As far as the defense, Michael Scherer comes in as defense coordinator. This is Odom's side of the ball, okay? Defense was number 112 in success allowed last year, but they returned 7 of the top 9 tacklers, and they got 10 players back that played at least 250 snaps last year. You got some really intriguing transfers coming in, several of which could probably start for Odom's defense. So, they just need help everywhere, talent-wise. They just need an influx of talent, and I think they got some of it with Odom. He's a good recruiter. He'll be able to get some talent here, but it's going to take a little bit of time besides just his first year. Let's look at keys to the season. They did pretty good as far as turnover margin, penalties per game, like the fundamental stuff, like don't beat yourself with turnovers, don't turn the ball over, don't beat yourself like with penalties, right? Just easy stuff. But that was with Arroyo. Is Odom going to keep the same thing going? We'll see. Odom's a good coach. I think he did well at Missouri. I think he was given kind of a raw deal there. He did pretty good at Arkansas as well. Transfers at UNLV, they're going to need to gel early. The main piece is Brumfeld, though. Like how is he going to click with Marion and some of these transfer offensive linemen? The schedule, pretty brutal for a team that's, hoping for their first winning season since 2005. Weeks 4 through 8 are the keys to making a bowl game. You got at UTEP, Hawaii, at Nevada, and Colorado State. I've got them winning all of those. And I got to win over San Jose State at the end of the season. So you start off with a win against Bryant. Then you play at Michigan. That's a loss. You play Vanderbilt. There's a chance UNLV could be favored against Vanderbilt. I don't think they will be, but there's always a chance. You got to play at UTEP. That one's going to be tough. If you can win one of Vanderbilt and UTEP, I think you're absolutely going bowling. I got them going 7-5. The win total here is set at 6. To go over is -105. To go under, -125. I got them going 7-5. Like I really like this team going over. I like Marion a lot at offensive coordinator, and I really like Barry Odom. I think this team is set up for a little while. I think they're going to be really, really good for a bit. So I'm buying stock here. The floor for this team, probably 4-8, right? I mean, you've seen them lose quite a bit, but I think the ceiling for UNLV is probably 9-3. I think this team could be pretty good, but I will go with 7-5 on it. I will go with 7-5 because I think they got talent. I think the schedule sets up okay. Still a tough schedule, but I like Barry Odom. I like what he's doing there. The Utah State Aggies. Blake Anderson found a way to get them to a bowl game again last year, but man, the numbers did not like them. I will tell you that. It was a revolving door of quarterbacks. Now they got 2 guys that have transferred out, or one that graduated, one that transferred out. You got a more set rotation. Can they avoid injuries? Let's look at the numbers. Post-game win expectancy last year, they went 6-6 in the regular season, but 5.49 and 6.51. So 5.5 wins for post-game win expectancy. Okay. Number 124 in returning production. Yeesh. Number 112 on offense, number 129 on defense. I don't have high expectations for Utah State this year. I will say that. And I'm trying to whisper it so that people don't get mad at me. But it's the truth, right? They needed 4 quarterbacks last year, but the 2 best ones, Cooper Lagasse and Levi Williams, they return. You got leading wide receiver and running back both gone. You got 4 starting offensive linemen gone. You're losing 63% of your snaps at offensive line. There were terrible numbers for a Blake Anderson offense last year. Number 115 PPA per drive, number 113 success rate, number 91 available yards. I would expect a bounce back on offense at least a little bit this year when you know what you're getting here, right? I think that's the biggest thing. And so moving over to the defense, 11th in Mountain West in yards allowed per game, but they were number 65 PPA per drive and number 47 in success allowed. So were they good or were they bad? I can't, some games they were great. Some games definitely not. They lost 7 of their top 10 tacklers, 69% of their snaps from defensive players. They got a lot of JUCO guys coming in. A lot of JUCO guys. Just rough. And they got some other FBS transfers coming in as well, but this is going to be a rebuilding thing. I can already tell it. You're losing Tyler, the running back. You're losing the wide receiver, Brian Cobbs. Logan Bonner's gone, so he's not even somebody you can fall back on anymore. It took a lot of, at least according to team rankings, it took a lot of luck for them to be able to get to a bowl game last year. Let's look at the keys to the season. Their win total is 5.5. To go over is -110. To go under is -120. They were putrid in the red zone on offense and defense. Number 129 conversion percentage on both. It was strange to see such a drop-off on this team after they won the Mountain West in 2021. It was just rough. Number 130 in penalties per game. They were number 123 in turnover margin. I still don't know how they made a bowl. It doesn't make sense. That Air Force game still drives me insane to this day because I could not figure it out. None of it made sense. The key question here, can transfers click quickly enough to find 6 wins? It doesn't appear likely, but Anderson has surprised us before. So we shall see. I don't expect big things from this bunch. They're expected to be favorites, or they're projected favorites in 4 games. I got them winning 4 games. I got them 4-8. A win against Nevada, a win against Colorado State, Idaho State, and at New Mexico. I can't in good conscience pick them to win at UConn right now. I can't expect them to beat James Madison or to go on the road and win at Iowa or at Air Force. This schedule is rough. I don't think they're going to fire Blake Anderson, but it is certainly not trending in the right direction, right? We'll say that. So I've got them 4-8. The ceiling here, I think, is another bowl game. You could find a couple of wins there. Like you could find a way to beat, San Jose State or UConn or something like that. Like you could absolutely find a way to do that. But the floor, I think, is probably 2-10. So if he goes from winning the Mountain West and 2 years later he's 2-10, then do they keep Blake Anderson around? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. So we will see. I like Utah State. I like Blake Anderson. But it does not look like this is going to be a very good year. I will say that. All right, moving along. The Wyoming Cowboys. Y'all know I love Craig Bowl. 7-6 last year, found a way back to a bowl game. They looked putrid in week 1 and then found a way to get it turned around immediately. They didn't even look like an FBS team to start last year against Illinois. But they fixed it. They got it fixed. Let's look at the numbers. 5.43 and 6.57 was the post-game win expectancy last year, and yet they went 7-5 in the regular season. Found a way to win some ball games, and this year, even though last year they had nothing as far as returning production, they were awful on that side. This year they are number 4 in returning production on defense, number 19 overall. How awesome is that? Now, you're losing the wide receiver, Joshua Cobbs. You're losing your running back, Titus Swin. You're losing 3 offensive linemen. I don't think it matters. Let's start on offense here. They're bringing in the running back, Harrison Whaley from Northern Illinois, to replace Titus Swin. So that's one thing. The quarterback, Andrew Peasley, returns. He needs to be better than he was last year. Obviously, 10 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That's not going to cut it. 53% completion percentage. That's not going to cut it. They're losing 53% of their offensive line snaps, but Craig Bowl has always developed the position well, right? I think we can agree on that. So, to go along with it, let's see. They're losing 3 of their top 5 pass catchers. They only threw on 38% of their plays anyway. It's not quite at Air Force levels, but Craig Bowl likes to run the football. We'll say that. The defense, we'll move over to that. They were number 66 PPA per drive, but number 54 in success rate allowed. They were only number 120 in takeaways per game, so they could stand to be a little bit more aggressive. They needed to get stops. They weren't great at that. Number 78 in points per scoring opportunity, number 83 in defensive red zone conversion percentage. They're returning 13 of their top 16 tacklers. This defense knows the scheme. They're going to be good again, and probably better than they were last year because it took them some time to get acclimated to what was going on. Key players, you got the wide receiver Wyatt Wieland. You got the transfer running back that I brought up here, Harrison Whaley. The tight end, Trayton Welch. Peasley, I think it has to be better. I think it can be better. On defense, linebacker Easton Gibbs, cornerback Ja'Cory Hawkins. You got defensive tackle Devon Harris. Look, let's talk about keys to the season here. Bowles' roster never looks great. Never. But they consistently win. They put themselves in position to have the other team make a mistake, and then they capitalize. They've got 6 winning seasons in the last 7, and the only losing season was that 2020 year. And I think they only played 6 games. Going divisionless does not help Wyoming, but I don't think they anticipate winning the Mountain West a whole lot anyway. We'll say that. They were 4-1 in one-score games last year in the regular season. They were number 16 in luck rating. Can it continue? We'll see. I don't know that they would necessarily need it to continue, but obviously luck will help. They would need to improve their turnover margin, which was number 78 last year. Now, we know the trenches are going to be good. Do they have a playmaker that can, generate explosives on offense or defense? There's a lot of questions with Wyoming if they're going to be, competing for the conference championship. Yes and no. Like, I believe in Wyoming quite a bit, but not enough to see them, win a conference title. I do have them going over the 6.5 here. 6.5 win total over at BetUS. To go over is plus 110. To go under is minus 120. I've got them at 7-5, but the ceiling here is 9-3. The floor is 4-8. I like Wyoming. You guys know I like Craig Bowl. You guys know that I love that guy and his old man football stuff. So it is what it is. Let's talk about who is actually going to win the conference. Because it's divisionless, we got some interesting stuff going on, right? We got some interesting things here. I tend to believe, looking at, all of these schedules, etc., I think we're probably going to get Boise State and, you know what? I'm going to toss it out there. I think we could get Wyoming in there. Either Wyoming or Air Force, one or the other. But that's who I believe will be playing against Boise State. I think Boise probably wins the Mountain West this year. That non-conference schedule I know is brutal, but what are they right now? They're plus 185 to win the Mountain West. Those non-conference games don't hurt you when it comes to that conference title game. I think they're going to have a good defense. I think the offense will be up to par by the end of the season. And the same with the defense, for sure. So, yeah, I'll take Boise State to win. I know that that's chalk. I get it. But I think that the opponent could be different than we've had in quite a while with either Air Force or Wyoming. I think it could be very, very interesting, especially, if Air Force gets a win over Boise State at the end of the season. Just play them back-to-back. A lot of fun. All right, let's get out of here. This has been enough. I'm headed out of town for a few days, and then we will do some more of these conference previews as soon as I get back. Make sure and go watch the BetUS College Football Show. We're going to have a lot of stuff going on over there, so definitely help us out with that. That would certainly help things quite a bit if you would do that. Go and check out BetUS. It is America's favorite online sportsbook, the premier online sportsbook. They are where the game begins. It's BetUS.com. We got a link in the description. Click that thing, get signed up. What else? New website coming soon. That's always good. If you're coming to Bet Bash, hit me up on Twitter at GaryWCE. Even if you're not, if there's anything you want me to talk about other than previews, I promise you they're coming. I promise. It's been a very long summer. We'll say that. All right, is there anything else we need to hit? I don't believe so. All right, you guys are fantastic. You're always fantastic. I appreciate you. With that said, good gracious. Oh, hit subscribe and hit like. It's the First time I said that the whole time. Whatever. With that said, take care of yourself. Take care of each other. God bless college football. And hopefully, all of your tickets cash this week. Thanks for listening to Winning Cures Everything. Make sure and follow me on Twitter @GaryWCE. If you want to toss in a question, you can email me, Gary@winningcureseverything.com. Make sure and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.